alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Are you guys ready? Okay, let's serve Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the Mighty Drive. We hold debates that give you viable solutions. We bring to you people that Ivora is wanting to listen to. We are gender sensitive and give space to the unheard voices. Not forgetting the quote of the day.
We are live on our social media platforms, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't miss the debate behind the wheels and our studios.
I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
Farida Vikobiri.
And Princess Luwe Delidian.
Expect in-depth analysis, credible, factual and authentic information. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk.
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here, Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Amacha amalungi olunaku olwaleero lunaku lwakuna ennaku z'omwezi tubala 27 tuli mwezi ogwa October oba bwenguza mu Luganda gwe mwezi ogwa mukulukusa bitongotongo munange nagwo tugutambudde gubulako ennaku ntono nnyo ate tubeerenga nagwo tuguwunzika omwaka tukyali mu gwa 2022 mbabuuzako yonna gye musiziddwa okubanga mutulaba era nga nze omumbejja luwedde Lilian mbaaniriza nnyo ku program The Mighty Drive okuva ssaawa emu ey'okumakya paka ssaawa 3 nga twogera ku nsonga ez'enjawulo n'ebirala bingi nnyo ebya bigenze maaso mu ggwanga erya Uganda awamu n'abagenyi baffe be tubeera nabo buli lunaku naye kansooke mbawa ate updates oba ebimu ku byabadde mu mawulire agabadde ate ggwe gy'otaasobodde kubanga obeera naye nga sinabagagendamu olunaku olwaleero tulina abakulu babiri abagenda okubanga batwegattako munnange abakulu bano kuliko Geofrey Mugisha ono nno director Amka Foundation Africa okono kwogatta Joseph Gracious Tahinduka ono nno managing director Debate Institute Africa National Debate Team head coach be bakulu betulinawo mu studios olunaku olwaleero. Munnange tugenda kubanga twogera ku nsonga ate ez'enjawulo, nsonga za kuwandiika n'ebirala bingi nnyo ebigwa ate mu ttuluba eryo. Naye nga mbaaniriza olunaku olwaleero ensonga ezigenda okwogerwako zigenda kuba nsonga ate nkulu bulungi, so beerako ate osobole okubanga otegeera biki ebigenda okubanga byogerwako abakulu bano. Omukulu Rogers Tulyahabwe ajja kubanga ate abakutuusaako amakya ag'olunaku olwaleero. Naye nga ate nkutegeeza tuli butereevu ku page yaffe ya The Alternative Uganda awamu ne Digitalk TV gy'emikutu kwesobola okubeera nga ate otufunira. Gwe agala okubeera ekitundutundu ku discussions ez'enjawulo mu programs ez'enjawulo, genda mu search engine gw'abadde totumanyi wa we tuli, teekamu The Alternative Uganda oba Digitalk TV. Ekyoba osookera ddala okukola bw'omala okutufuna likinga page ezo ate otufollowing onyegena kade ka notifications nti buli bwe tubeera live ate otegeera program ki ebeera eriyo naawe noobeera kitundutundu ku yo. Ku YouTube kwe tuli nnyo tuli The Alternative Uganda, so genda subscribing ku YouTube channel yaffe ate tusobole okubanga tutambulira wamu okweyungira okutegeera ate n'okumanya kangenda butereevu mu bimu ku byakoze amawulire ate mu bitundu by'eggwanga ebyenjawulo. Nga tukyagenda maaso n'okukungubagira ate abayizi abaafiira mu muliro ku ssomero lya Salama School of Blind lino no lisangibwa mu district ey'e Mukono. Munnange olunaku olw'eggulo bazadde b'abamu ku baana bano bagiddwako endagabutonde okukakasa ani yali muzadde waani ate munnange kibasobozesa okubanga baweebwa abaana bano oba abantu baabwe basobole okubanga babaziika. Munnange omuliro guno olunaku olw'Emmande gwakwata ekisulo mwali musula abayizi bano. Munnange abayizi bano baliko tebalaba munnange era nga abayizi bano baali bayitirivu naye nga 11 ku bo munnange baalusuulamu akaba okwonna ate kwogatta abalala abagendera ku bisago abali mu ddwaliro ery'Ekiruddu nga bakyagenda maaso n'okubanga bafuna obujjanjabi. Poliisi yategezezza nti 3 ku bo basobodde okubanga basiibulwa naye nga ate wakyaliyo abalala abakyagenda maaso n'okubanga bafuna obujjanjabi. Munnange twongera okunyolerwa wamu ne famire z'abaana bano ate abafiiridde mu muliro. Jjo nabadde ndaba amawulire nga ndaba omuzadde omu nga yeekubira enduulu eri gavumenti okubanga ebayambako nga bo abaafiirwa abaana nti tebalina kye balina era tebamanyi nawe waabwe bayinza kutandikira bwe kituuka ku nsonga y'okubanga baziika ebisigalira eby'abaana baabwe. Ago nno ge mawulire ate agava esayidi eyo naye nga bano nno abazadde abagiddwako endagabutonde ndowooza ate ebinaaba bivudde mu kukebera oba mu ndagabutonde ze baatutte basuubira okubifuna ate essabbiiti ejja. Abakulu b'essomero munnange nabo baavuddeyo ne bategeeza nti baagala abayizi bano abaafudde 11 babeere nga baziikibwa wamu. Munnange ate nga okuba nti babajjukira n'okubawa ate n'okubakolera emikolo ate munnange egibasiibulira ddala mu bulamu obw'ensi eno. Kino nno tekinnaba kubanga kikkaanyizibwako abazadde bonna naye bo abakulu b'essomero bwe batyo bategeezezza era ne bongera maaso n'okutegeeza nti munnange gavumenti ensimbi zibadde bawa ate zibadde ensimbi nnyingi nnyo. Emu ku nsonga lwaki babadde tebasobola kugula bimu ku bikozesebwa mu ssomero ebyetaagisa okutangira ate omuliro bwe gubeera nga gubaluseewo. Munnange lino lye limu era ku masomero amangi agazze gajja era nga poliisi ebadde nga ekola okunoonyereza okw'enjawulo. Lwako tetunaba kufuna lipoota yankomeredde ku nsonga ezimu lwaki omuliro ate gukwata amasomero. Bw'oba ojjukidde mu mwaka ogwa 2008 essomero eryabudde munnange lyakwata omuliro omwafiira abayizi abawerera ddala 20. Naye nga mu bano omuyizi omu yali amanyiddwa nga Yvonne Namaganda, ono nno ate yasiimibwa era abalibwa nga omu ku bazira era nga omuyizi ono kigambibwa nti yafa ng'agezaako okuba nga ataasa bayizi banne. Era ne ku ssomero lino erya Salama School of Blind waliwo omuyizi yabadde amanyiddwa nga Paros ono nate munnange kyannaku nnyo okuba nti yafiiridde mu muliro guno naye nga yafudde agezaako okubanga ataasa abayizi banne okusobola okuba nti munnange ate tebajjiira mu muliro. Abamu ku bo basobodde okuba nga basurvivinga ne batuuka wabweru naye ate munnange teyasobodde kubanga afuluma naye nga yabadde atadde nnyo essiro okutaasa abaana ab'ekibiina ekisooka oba abaana aba P1 munnange ate babeerenga tebajjira mu buliro naye ate ekyembi munnange bano nno bonna baayidde. Bw'owuliriza stories ezimu okuva mu bayizi abamu abasobodde okubanga basurviving oba abasobodde okusimatuka waliwo abamu abagambye nti bagezezzaako nnyo okudduka okutuuka ku mulyango naye wabadde nga waliwo akatanda akabaziyiza okubanga munnange bafuluma. Era waliwo omuyizi omulala gwe nalabyeko eyagambye nti ye omusomesa yamukutte omukono ng'ayita mu ddirisa n'amusika ate n'amuteeka wabweru olwo nno n'asobola okubanga asimatuka ekibabo kino. Naye nga bo ababaka ba Parliament basabye alipoota ku muliro guno oguzze gukwata amasomero. Kino nno kibayamba okusobola okubanga bategeera obuzibu we buva oba obuzibu obuviirako omuliro okubanga gukwata amasomero. Kino nno kizze kibaawo mu myaka miyitirivu, amasomero mangi nnyo agayidde ag'enjawulo wano mu kibuga Kampala ne mu bitundu by'eggwanga ate eby'enjawulo. Tetunnaba kubanga tufuna alipoota ey'enkomeredde ku nsonga lwaki amasomero gano munnange gajja. Waliwo essomero nandooza erinnya ndyerabiddemu katono ekisuula ekyabalenzi bwe kyakwata omuliro ne mufiiramu nno ddala abayizi abawererako ddala. Naye bwe nawulirako abamu bwe baali bannyonnyola baali bagamba nti twawulidde omuntu ng'ayiwa ebintuntu ng'abiyiwa mu dormitory ng'abiyiwa bw'ati bw'abiyiwa naye ate ne batasobola kubanga bategeera nti ebimu ebyo nno ebyali biyiwa munnange alabika yali petulooli era poliisi yavaayo ne tutegeeza nti ekyakola okunoonyereza ku ki ekyali kiviiriddeko omuliro ogwo. Era ne ku luno ku ssomero lya Salama School of the Blind munnange poliisi era yategeezeza nti bakyagenda mu maaso n'okubanga banoonyereza ekimu ku kyavi oba ensonga eyaviiriddeko omuliro okubanga gukwata ekisulo kino ekyabadde kisulwamu abayizi. Ago nno ge mawulire ate agava esayidi eyo ku ssomero lya Salama School of Blind. Bwe tuba tweyongeddeyo still ku nsonga munnange ey'aba students oba ey'abaana, omuyizi owa Luzira SS oba Luzira Secondary School ono nno abadde mu senior ey'okuna yakubye omukuumi w'essomero lino ekikonde ate munnange ekyamujje mu bulamu obw'ensi eno. Kigambibwa nti omuyizi ono yabadde agezaako kutoloka kufuluma mu ssomero ekiro naye ate omukuumi n'agezaako okubanga amulemesa. Omukuumi ono yategeerekeseeko nga Geofrey munnange yabadde agezaako okuyimiriza omuyizi ono okuba nti tafuluma ssomero mu budde obw'ekiro era nga wano entabwe we yavudde munnange ne balwanaganamu omuyizi n'amutujja eŋŋuumi eyamujja ate mu bulamu obw'ensi eno. Naye nze ndowooza kino kigende eri abayizi bonna nti munnange oyinza okuba omuntu mu kulowooza nti musaagirira naye ate ebintu ne bitatambula bulungi nga bwe bitatambudde bulungi munnange ewakati omugenzi Geofrey ono yabadde asikaali yabadde akuuma essomero erya Luzira Secondary School. Bw'obanga omanyi ekyakutwala ku ssomero munnange tusaba ate ky'oba oteeka mu nkola okusobola okwewala ebirala ate ebiyinza okutuukawo ebiyinza ate okulemesa okweyongerayo n'obulamu buba n'okweyongerayo n'okwajja ate n'emisomo gyo. Bwe neeyongerayoko omusango ogwali gwatwalibwa mu High Court munnange guno nno nga gwekoosa ku kuba nti internet yali yaggyibwako mu kulonda kwa 2021 guno nno gwagobeddwa. Omulamuzi Musa Sekaana yategeezezza nti omusango guno gwali badde gutwalibwa mu kkooti etaputa ssemateeka so si kooti ensukkulumu nga kino nno bwe kyabadde kikoleddwa. Era abawaabye omusango guno era nga eno body ya civil society munnange bano nno basaba ate munnange wabeerewo ekikolebwa wabeerewo ekikyuka bwe kituuka ku nsonga eno nga internet yali yagibwako mu kulonda okwa 2021 wamu ne mobile money era nga bano nno basoowenga Attorney General okwali Uganda Communications Commission ekitongole ekitwala ebyo ebiwerezebwa ku mpewo MTN, Airtel awamu ne Africell yali ekyaliwo mu budde obwo era nga munnange ebimu ku byagibwako mwalimu Facebook, mwalimu emikutu emirala, mwali Twitter, Instagram n'emikutu emirala gyonna kebere WhatsApp nayo yagibwako era nga ne mobile money munnanga ate nayo yagibwako era nga wenjogerera kati ebirala byonna byaddizibwako naye nga yo Facebook ate naba kubanga eddizibwako mu ggwanga lino erya Uganda era nga omusango nno guno munnange omulamuzi Musa Sekaana yagugobye era yategeezezza nti omusango guno gwali munnange gwaloopa era n'ategeeza nti ebyadde mu musango guno gwaloopebwa bebimu ku ebyo era ekitongole ekibiina organization yemu gwe yaloopa mu mwaka gwa 2016 era kinajjukirwa nti mu kulonda kwa 2016 internet yagibwako wamu ne mobile money era nga UCC oba Uganda Communications Commission yali ate etoye order okuba nti emikutu gino oba social media emikutu gimugatta bantu munnange gigibwako okusobola ate okwekuuma ebiyinza okutuukawo munnange agonno ateera ge mawulire agava ebirudda ate eyo bwemba neyongeddeyoko ekirwadde ekya Ebola kikyagenda mu maaso n'okwerisa enkuli sofanga mu kibuga Kampala abayizi 6 okuva mu masomero 3 ag'enjawulo bano nno bamaze okubanga bazuulwamu obulwadde buno era nga batwaliddwa ate awajjanjabirwa abalwadde ba Ebola. Kinajjukirwa nti mu district ey'Mubende we wasooka okubanga wazuulibwa obulwadde buno obwa Ebola era nga permanent secretary owa ministry ey'ebyobulamu Dr. Diana Atwine yavaayo n'ategeeza nti Uganda munnange bazuddemu ekirwadde ekya Ebola era ne basaba bannayuganda okubanga munnange beekuuma ekirwadde kino. Omukulembeze w'eggwanga bwe yavaayo okwogerako eri eggwanga ku nsonga z'ekirwadde kino munnange yateekawo omuggalo mu district ey'Mubende era ne bateekayo ne kafyu ngono nno ono n'atandika ku ssaawa emu ey'akawungeezi era nga munnange kino kitwalidde ddala ennaku eziwera sofa mu kibuga Kampala namwe mwakakasiddwamu obulwadde buno obwa Ebola era awo abakulira ministry y'ebyobulamu bwe bategeezezza nti bannayuganda balina okwekuuma okubeera ate obulindaala bwe kituuka ku nsonga z'abantu be basisinkana oba ate be bakwata mu ngalo okusobola okuba nga twekuuma ekirwadde kino ekya Ebola era tubeere nga tukirinnya ku nfeete nga bwe twalinnya ekirwadde kya COVID-19 ku nfeete. Ku ddakiika ziri 21 ezakayita ku ssaawa emu ey'amakya g'olunaku olwaleero munnange tukyagenda mu maaso program The Mighty Drive gy'oli mu kulaba okutuukira ddala ssaawa 3 ez'amakya ag'olunaku olwaleero so tulakkalira ensonga ezigenda okuba nga zoogerwako nsonga nkulu naye ate ensoseewo kubanga mbawa ebimu ku byakoze amawulire mu kitundu ate munnange gwe gy'otaabadde oba mu bitundu mwe tugenda mu maaso n'okuba nga tuwangalira omukulu Geofrey Mugisha director wa Amka Foundation okonno kwogatta Joseph Gracious Tahinduka onono managing director Debate Institute Africa bebagenda okubanga batwegattako olunaku olwaleero okusobola okulaba nga ate boogera ku nsonga munnange ez'enjawulo ndowooza ngenda kubamaliriza ne story eno y'abannayuganda abakomezeddwawo okuva ate e Dubai era nga bano nno bakomezeddwawo okwaboobwe oba bakomezeddwawo mu ggwanga lino erya Uganda. Omukyala Farida Bikobere bwe badde atuwa ebimu ku byabadde mu mawulire olunaku olw'eggulo yayogeddeko era ku mboozi y'emu nga gavumenti yakomezaawo bannayuganda bawerera ddala 156 era nga munnange bano bakomezeddwawo mu ggwanga lino erya Uganda. National Unity Platform bavaayo kubanga bateeka giya mu nsonga y'okuba nti bakomyawo bannayuganda ababadde stuck munnange e Dubai era ne bagenda maaso n'okuba nga basonda ssente okuyambako okukola ate omulimu guno era nga omukulu David Lewis Lubongoya yatutegeezezza nti sofa bakasonda obukadde 34,600 era nga bano nno bategeezezza nti oba ono nno yategeezezza nti abannayuganda baweredde 72 be basobodde okuba nga bakomezebwawo ekibiina ekya National Unity Platform. Omubaka muwaddanku nnyingi munnange ono nno naye yavuddeyo n'asomooza gavumenti ng'agamba nti bano tebakozeeko yadde nsonga yonna bwekyuka kukuza bannayuganda mu ggwanga lino erya Uganda era n'agamba nti ayagala obukakafu kuba nti bano nno balinako munnayuganda yenna gwe bakomezaawo n'agamba nti babalageyo waakiri tiketi eya munnayuganda gwe basobodde okuba nga bakomyawo naye nga omukulu muwaddanku nnyingi ye bw'atyo munnange bwe yategeezezza ku nsonga ate eno yennyini era nga kino ekyakoleddwa ekibiina kya National Unity Platform munnange bakoledde ddala obulungi obutagambika okusobola okulaba nti bannayuganda ababadde balemedde mu Dubai munnange ate bano nno bakomezebwa. Tuze tulaba obutambi obw'enjawulo nga abantu bano basaba obuyambi oba basaba okuba nga ate munnange bayambibwa bakomezebwa munnange mu ggwanga erya Uganda naye nga kino kibadde kitutemu akabanga okuba nti babadde tebanaba kuddizibwa oba kukomezebwawo naye nga National Unity Platform munnange basobodde okuba nga bakulira enteekateeka eno ey'okuzza bannayuganda era nga ne gavumenti nayo yakoze kyeyasobodde okuba nga ekomyawo ko abamu ku abo ababadde stuck mu Dubai. Kinajjukirwa nti omukulembeze w'ekibiina kino ekya National Unity Platform omukulu Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu yali ategese okukola concert mu Dubai era nga ssente zaali zigenda okuvaamu ze zimu ku ezo zaali zigenda okukozesebwa okuba nga bakomyawo bannayuganda ababadde munnange stranded babadde bakyalemeddeyo Dubai naye ate ekivvulu kino nekitasobola kubanga kigenda maaso olw'ensonga ate ez'enjawulo zeyavaayo n'ategeeza ku mukutu gwe ogwa Facebook munnange n'atasobola kubanga akola ekivvulu kino nga bwe yali ateeseteese naye nga bwe byagenda bwe bityo yeekubira omulanga eri bannakibiina kya banne aba NUP abasobola okuba nti abamu ku bo bavaayo okuba nga bayamba okwali ate n'abalala munnange okwali omuyimbi Spice Diana naye yavaayo ate n'awaayo ensimbi obukadde obusoba mu 3 okuba nti bagula tickets basobole okuba nga bakomyawo bannayuganda mu ggwanga lyabwe nabo basobola okuba nga beeyagalira mu nsi eno. Ndowooza ebimu ku ebyo ebikoze amawulire ate munnange ebyakoze amawulire olunaku olw'eggulo era nange nsobodde okuba nga mbikutuusaako era nga mbikumenyeramenyeramu ebyo byabadde ate ggwe tasobodde kubeera so tugenda kubanga ate munnange tuwumulamu katono nnyo bwe tukomawo Mighty Drive egenda kubanga egenda mu maaso n'abagenyi betulina mu studios olunaku olwaleero era n'ensonga ezigenda okuba nga zoogerwako tosaanidde kubeera nga ate ozibuusa amaaso so katuwumulemu katono nnyo nze omumbejja luwedde Lilian temuvaako tekyagenda mu maaso. Good morning.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digitalk brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
How are you beautiful Ugandans? It's your girl Tahinduka. Welcome to the Fancy Flow. Who doesn't see my hair, guys? I am super glamorous. Remember, this is the only show where we're going to be talking about fashion. Please, where are you think? Teaching. What has been confusing you about fashion? Sorry, you said I should not smile. For all the information about fashion, maintenance of body shape.
I can wear bling bling when I'm going out. So you can wear bling bling going out or any occasion.
We shall be doing all this in the Fancy Flow. Remember, it airs every Thursday right from 8:30 to 9 with your girl Tahinduka. It is the Fancy Flow.
Are you guys ready? Okay, let's serve Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the mighty drive. We hold debates that give you viable solutions. We bring to you people that Ivora is wanting to listen to. We are gender sensitive and give space to the unheard voices. Not forgetting the quote of the day.
We are live on our social media platforms, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't miss the debate behind the wheels and our studios.
I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
Farida Vikobiri.
And Princess Luwe Delidian.
Expect in-depth analysis, credible, factual and authentic information. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to today's edition of the Mighty Drive. My name is Rogers Tulyahabwe, and today I have the privilege to moderate this discussion, a very important one to me, myself particularly, and a lot of people, but it should actually be to every other person, because let me tell you, a person who is ignorant, ignorance is very bad. Some gentleman said, better be unborn than untaught, for ignorance is the root of misfortune. So today's discussion is around the whole culture of reading and you know, what that does, how does it inform our perspectives? For people who are leaders, should they be readers? Because we have had that common saying that every leader should be a reader, because every time you read, you get fresh perspectives. But you also get to travel to places you have not been, so you learn a thing or two in different cultures, and that informs collectively, because let me tell you, as human beings, we evolve together and most of the things are quite relatable, so it is important to read. So today, our discussion is going to be about reading as a tool to model youth narratives and opinions. I say youth particularly because in this generation, if you're not a reader, it is quite problematic. And so I have two gentlemen, and one is about yet to join me, but I also have one who is a coach, head coach of the national debate team. I'm not going to be introducing him. I'm going to give him time to introduce himself, tell us who he is, what he does, and then we can begin writing. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Rogers. My name is Joseph Gracious Tahinduka. I am the leader of Debate Institute Africa. I also head the national debating team as the head coach. I carry the privilege of having belonged to a number of reading initiatives, and being a coach myself, it does mean that I indulge people in the art of reading such that they can become ready to become globally competent. So by and large, I indulge about 4 to 6 hours of reading every day, and then I coach people even in the very art of indulging a lot of literature in order to formulate their leadership philosophy and ethics such that they can become meaningful citizens who can contribute to the future of their particular countries. It will be a privilege contributing to this discussion.
That's quite a background, a history of things.
Yes,
and
sure.
so you don't do just debate coaching. Well, if you do debate coaching, I cannot ask if you're a debater. So that is one leads to another. But you also do public speaking and that kind of business.
Yes, I do. The very reason that I decided to focus part of my life to debate and public speaking coaching is that I was concerned about the narrative of how political leaders are, for example, using the art of persuasion to blind the entire population. And I needed to contribute to a future where citizens are able to filter truth from half-truth, falsehoods from half-truth, to ensure they can be able to contribute meaningfully to accountability processes of their democracy. And that is something which is missing in our democracy. If you read a book like The Age of Chaos by Dambisa Moyo, she argues that unless democracy in and of itself can be reformed internally, to ensure that people who participate in it have the ability to meaningfully make a decision which can grow a democracy.
That is
and
informed.
then we won't have a democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling, I belong to a book club that is, which you, okay, not book club, it is a club, which you also subscribe to, which is the Vision Leaders Club. And last night we had a discussion that was around book clubs and all that business. And so when you look at the whole ecosystem of our leaders, most of them either do not actually read or have not read. Yeah. And some of them I would excuse because you'll find one person who is a doctor being the head of the ICT. One person is totally, good in one area, but they quite do the opposite. So sometimes it's kind of challenging, but that is the society we live in, and I hope that we learn a thing or two. But at the very time, we have been joined by my other panelist, a gentleman who's called Geofrey Mugisha. Obviously, I'm not going to introduce him. I'm going to give him time to introduce himself, tell us what he's doing, and we'll begin right away. Mr. Mugisha, sir, good morning.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I am Geofrey Mugisha, the founder and team leader of Amka Foundation Africa. Yes.
What do you do at Amka? What is Amka exactly?
Well, it's just a component of things that we do, but majorly for specifically this discussion that we're having today. I'm a member. We are a member organization to the Uganda Community Libraries Association, an umbrella body of community libraries in Uganda.
So it's in the business of reading?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Yes. What a coincidence.
Thank you.
Now, today's topic I did introduce earlier is how do we shape, the young people, the youth, and how do we use reading as a tool to do that. And I want to believe that most of the leaders, when you look across the world, most of them at least who are successful or have done particularly good in the human history have been readers, as they have been leaders. And so I want to get an opinion for someone who's out there who's probably not that much of a reader. They need to understand the magnitude and the importance of reading as a whole. So I'm going to ask to begin with you exactly. How has reading as one shaped your whole perspective about things? And why is it important to read anyway?
Well, thank you for that question. I personally have been an ardent reader since I was a very young boy. As a matter of fact, I taught myself how to read and write. So, that is the significance of this thing for me. I used to read small news articles that, the garbage bins around school. So I would go around collecting those items that we used to wrap food items with. So I would collect them and I would start, making my first attempts to reading, and that's how I stumbled on reading and eventually writing. So for me, reading has been a part of me for, since that age. However, in regards to my observation of the young people, for example, I'll ask a question. When was the last time you personally have read a book, or even our viewer, when was the last time someone sat down to read a book? And this is not something that you see often. I have had people come to my library, they ask for books that they never even read and never even return, Yes, they don't have the courtesy to return the books that you... Yes. So you can see that this stems from their childhood. What is your fondest memory of school? What are the memories that you have about your former school, for example, your primary schools? These are horrific stories. They are fearsome stories. These are things that, when you think about your teacher, you feel a tinge of fear come over you, because you associate school, your primary school life, with fear that emanates from, how the teacher related with the learner. And so you see that as we grow up, we tend to read for exams. It is a perception for Africans especially. They read to pass exams, and after exams they drop everything to do
Is that a problem of the education system and the teaching system, or is it an issue of interest and people collectively? For example, if I am interested in economics, I will automatically find myself reading economical books, and the Dambisa Moyas is one of the preferences. So is it what is the problem, the cause of this whole thing?
Well, I believe that it is a thing of nature more than nature. This is a nature thing. How have your perceptions, your opinions, your feelings, your emotions, how have they been nurtured through the process, through the years? Because you are just a component of your assimilation and interpretation of society. What you see the people around you doing. What do you relate with? Like when you are a kid, what are the things that you play with at your home? For example, did you have books around you when you were growing up? Well, fortunately for me, I had that. And it's why I'm still pushing this, because maybe, maybe, just maybe. I may somehow sometimes feel the arrogance to think that it has been me, my own doing, my own driving. But I want to also believe that it's been a part of the nurturing by certain people in my circle to inculcate these disciplines in me, to drive you a certain way. Because you see, like for example, when someone, you'll hear that most of our musicians grew up in churches. So there's that association with church, and so they're like, when I was young, I used to have to be around choir, and so yes, that nurtures them into that field. So in regards to the reading culture here, that is not happening, and that has affected the young people. As you grow, of course, you will associate more with what you have around you. I'll give you a scenario that is even trending. Do you know that our minors, children as young as 8 years, 10 years, are addicted to phones?
They are, as a matter of fact.
Because that is what they are exposed to. That is what they are receiving. This is, you see that they are getting as much attached to the mobile phones just as their parents, because this is what they see around. These are the toys that they are playing around with. And just imagine the caliber and the class of adults that there will be in the next 20, 15 years from now.
That's right. And I have a feeling that the phones wouldn't be a problem if they were using them for the right things. Like, the problem is without guidance, to be left around, that freedom usually is misused and misplaced. Now, I want to ask the same question to Joseph. You are an ardent reader. One, for some reason, you know, I look at and then say this gentleman is, you know, informed and read in one or two things. But how has reading, you as a debate coach, you are that debater. I don't know if you can become a debater without being a reader. But how has that shaped you as an individual?
I'll first speak to how debating moderates personal extreme thoughts to get to the common understanding. For example, when I first started doing economic reading, I indulged largely information around Marxism and socialism. Now, in that sense, I became a socialist because I was only consuming one side of the story. Then, as a result, I started indulging literature on capitalism to get to understand the alternative to Marxism. I didn't just want to buy into Karl Marx's theory on the proletariat, you know, carrying out revolutions to break down private property and the system of capitalism. So as I looked at capitalism and I went into the rationale on why people do capitalism, then I found a common ground between socialism and capitalism. So fundamentally, this also applies to, for example, me as a Christian. If you are a Christian and you only indulge Christian thought, by and large, there is a chance that you become a Christian extremist, one who doesn't tolerate any Islamic thought, who doesn't find a common ground either between Buddhism or Islam. And exactly. So if anyone who consumes what Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie calls a single story, which you can get out of reading literature, becomes an extremist. It's like whites who only consume literature of a certain nature about Africans. In the long run, their thoughts of Africans are people who are pitiful, who don't have any talent on themselves. So to me, reading a wide variety of literature enables you to capture all sides of the story and enables you to find a common ground and on how you can contribute to that specific conversation. That is what reading did to me. It just broke down those extreme versions of thoughts. And even right now, whenever I'm supposed to do a very big decision, I need to look at all sides of the story. I don't want to assume that there is one side of the story. The second part, I would want to agree that nurture is a fundamental part of someone building their reading journey. For example, there are people who went before us. For example, you're doing good work with libraries. I remember the first library I used to visit was a library which my mother built through through helping a white lady during her university days. She would work, she would get a book. So at home there's like a really huge bookshelf with books. I really read almost everything in that library. But then there's another library in Kabari called Mpambara Cook's Foundation. When I was reading those books and I was looking at American history, and then I looked at people like Dr. King, Dr. Martin Luther King, and I looked at the fight for black liberation. Through reading those books and through indulging that kind of struggle, I formulated my political thought that even when you are a marginalized people, there is a chance at you fighting and then getting that kind of freedom ultimately. So as a Pan-Africanist who basically was born out of reading literature, I away from it moderating my extreme thoughts, I then now start formulating my political thoughts. Now I do coaching. I really run around 6 debating classes in a week. As I am giving reading assignments to people, I'm saying, how about you read about the Arabian Revolution, read about the Candlelight Revolution, how about you read about Marxism, about capitalism? through those kinds of reading assignments that teachers are able to give people, for example, in the new curriculum which we are now having, we are seeing so much reading. Even if, even in international schools, it has been more or less like that for the last 20 years. They really went far before us. If you look at the SCE curriculum in most accredited Christian education schools, you find they are studying these things which we got to know at university, apparently, which is a really bad thing. So I find that the education system, the way it is going, we are going to have people who are like really good at reading. Right now, I was surprised to tell you, because I work in education institutions, that students no longer write notes when they're in class. They are told to make their own notes, and as you make your own notes, you are understanding them, and you're understanding that expands. Because right now, for example, where I teach at Nabsonsa Girls School, students already know how to indulge articles on Google Scholar, on Z Library, read books, extract their own notes, and formulate their own ideas around thought. And for me, I think that is critical. I think we are going to the right direction.
Does that ultimately, now in the perspective of, for example, the people that you teach,
sure,
does that kind of reading inform entirely and ultimately what they choose to do in life, or how they look at life altogether? Because I'll tell you, we are especially, let me relate it to politics.
Sure.
We are in the political system that is not read. And that is a fact. I do not mean to blackmail anyone. That is a fact. Well, at least not 100%, but about 80% of them are really not those people who are interested in reading or something. Would you say that in the long run, for example, if someone would become anything, their reading and the perspectives they get in this whole process would inform what they become, what they do?
Absolutely. I know you've read The Mustard Seed, right?
I have,
or
a long time ago.
You've studied the thoughts of, I think, the father of Winnie Byanyima. I'm forgetting his surname, English name. He tells you that the president of the Republic of Uganda, as he would be farming the cows, he would be walking away with socialist books to the farm. And if you study the first years of Museveni's regime, even up to now, because if you study most of his speeches, he's speaking of this nationalism. If you study his thesis at university, exactly, that's still the Franz Fanon's theory on violence, on breaking down colonial structures. The books he read influenced his thoughts, even up to today. So we must be careful. For example, if you look at how, for example, Russians believe right now, most Russians don't necessarily believe that the Ukrainian war is a bad thing, because the education system has tailored them to think that nationalism will always be priority against any specific value.
Yes,
so the way we raise children comes from the books that they read. Those books formulate their thoughts about themselves, about the countries in which they live, about how they can contribute to those countries. So it comes from a place of planning an education system, and you say, which values do we want to supplant in our children? Then you now say, which books can we strategically introduce them to piece by piece as they build their philosophy. But because they are children, someone has to think on their behalf. Otherwise, they will, like you said, be on their phones, and they'll be taught by Nickelodeon, they'll be taught by hashtags on social media. They will become like any other people. But books, they formulate firm philosophy. I must emphasize good books.
What is your favorite book?
Favorite book? It's the Bible, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it's the Bible. The Bible is the hugest canon of my life. But there are quite a number of books.
I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back and ask Especially the perspective of him as a Christian. He's a very serious Christian, by the way. A staunch one at that. I'm going to ask, how do you streamline, because most of the times you'll see that some theories that some, revolutionaries portray and suggest are kind of the opposite of what the Bible actually says. So how do you strike a balance between those? But I want to begin with also, what is the favorite book?
Of course, the Bible.
Oh. Looks like
canons.
No, it is a compendium of mysteries. So I would want to, indulge more into understanding the Bible.
Okay.
I haven't found a better book.
This is interesting. Not a problem. I understand that the Bible is more like informs our day
the gateway to the world.
And then one person I was talking with yesterday said animal farm is literally their best thing. Because animal farm has every time they find themselves in a position, animal farmers in a way prepared them to be able to maneuver in that particular. To understand that. And it was very intriguing. I realized that a lot of people actually do their life depending on what they believe in and all that stuff. But you as a librarian, I want to put it that way, in your choice of library, the books you give to people, is it always informed by you as an individual or as by what the interests of society are or what you want to see society be? Depending on the fact that when people read, they form their opinions on what should happen.
Because our library is guided by the regulations of the Uganda Community Libraries Association, they have a review board as the association. So with each book that we receive in our library, it is first reviewed by that review board, and then afterwards, they try to censor these things to see, what applies to which age, so that we can group books according to different tastes and preferences. But unfortunately, we don't have even more than 5 community libraries in Kampala.
Yeah, we don't.
We have
the only one I actually know that I've only been to is the American Center. They have a public library.
Yes.
It's the only one I have been to that I know there. You can go read your books or borrow and go home.
And the public libraries that we have are, the ones under the different division administrations, where members of the public don't have that much access, yes, because of the phobia that we associate with government offices. So it is, you find that most of these libraries, the public libraries, are not functioning. And Uganda has only 22 public libraries, with 5 of them in Kampala. And I want to really confess that even with our library, we find it very hard convincing members of the public to come and consume this information. So as much as we are available, we have outreaches in schools, we go different, we want to make reading a culture that can start with the young ones as young as 2. But then it is almost impossible when you don't have a support system.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, it is not a cycle. It doesn't. Now, for example, you've talked about the Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism is an elite thing. It is us who take an extra mile into intellectualism, who have a certain understanding with Pan-Africanism. Otherwise, Pan-Africanism itself as a thought, as a consciousness, has been politicized. They teach you the pillars of Pan-Africanism from Jankwazi, where they are indoctrinating you into the NRM ideology. So the common understanding for a political member they have with Pan-Africanism is actually intertwined with patriotism and then identity with political parties. And so they're like, opposition parties will distance themselves from that consciousness because they believe they don't share that value, Yeah, because it's been promoted with the sublimes, with the underlyings of a certain underlining. And I was having a discussion a couple of years ago with the late Professor Kajabago, with Dr. Kiurankuba and others, even the late Edith Tumwine. Even the late Edith Tumwine. So you're having a discussion with, and we're having a discussion over the revolution, the so-called liberation, the 1986 fundamental change. And we were arguing over the fact that they were different authors of different books. Now, the Mustard Seed conflicts with Eddie Tumwine's book, conflicts with James Kazora's book, you know. And so we are wondering, which account should we take? Who of these has
the right account of what?
Yes, who of these writers is telling the truth? And so this is, you can know that even our reading is intertwined with writing. It is a subject that is intertwined. So we carry reading along with writing. But then, how many books, Pan-Africanism, that's what we are, you know, Pan-Africanism in quotes, how many books are authored by Africans, for example? How many, you know, you see that just last year, in the previous year, 1.5 million books have been published globally. And China has contributed 1/3 by contributing over 500 of those books. So you can see that China is taking an upper hand into taking up the reading spaces by writing, by indoctrinating their young ones with these values. Africa, on the other hand, doesn't have its, you know, any of its countries among the top 50 publishing nations.
I wouldn't even say.
So you see that the publishing nations look at their identity, look at how they, you know, their nationalism, how do they identify themselves, how do they perceive themselves, for example. You see, you look at China, you look at India, you look at Japan, you know, these are promising countries. For example, Japan and India, they are taking up a lead role into their global affairs. Why? Because they are raising the consciousness of their own people, something that we are not doing. As a matter of fact, every 2 weeks, there is a language dying, a language going extinct. And it has been estimated that by the end of this century, over 50 to 90% of the languages will be extinct. And what languages do you think those will be? African languages.
Most of them.
Most of them will be
because
African
the literature
languages.
we read and consume, you know,
so we are going to have a dominancy of the, you know, the English as a language because of, you know, the Commonwealth. You have the United Kingdom, we have the USA, and then we have the Commonwealth. So you're going to see an emergence of dominance between like 3-4 major languages. That would be like, for example, we are going to have Chinese as a, you know, because of the population, of course, and what they are trying to do, you can see that they are even implementing their foreign policy programs regarding language in Africa and other places. So we are going to have Chinese, we are going to have English, we are going to have, you know, Russia, because Russia is also a major player, and I would advise that our people try to, you know, associate and read some Russian content.
Okay, I have a friend.
I thought it's good
content. I have a friend. Yeah, I have a friend who said literally what they consume is Russian mostly.
Yes.
He's that extremist.
Is that extremist?
So that side, yeah. But
I'm also learning Russian.
Yeah, you're learning Russian. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. We're going to come back to that. We're going to go in for a very, very short commercial break. And when we come back in the second hour, we're going to look deep into how do we now use that reading as it shapes. Now we see that it shapes everything that we do. How do we use it to change the perspectives and contribution of young people in the collective, in the community? How do we build nations that are readers, that are informed, that, you know, do not just do things based on emotions and all that. My belief and supporting, for example, a political party shouldn't overshadow the fact that something is wrong or right because it is done by an opposite, you know, party. But that is what we're going to look into. But also in the second hour, we should be able to contribute to the discussion. You can call in live. I'm going to be reading the phone numbers. They'll also be on the screen. On your screen, you'll check and be able to call in. But you can also put your comments, whether it's a question or a comment, on the comment section on social media handles, the Alternative Uganda Facebook handle, and the Digitalk TV. Let's go in for a short commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Are you guys ready? Okay, let's serve Uganda. As promised, we deliver. We are redefining the social media narrative, asking tough questions and holding your leaders accountable. We are non-partisan and break down having a conversation with Uganda.
We are the Mighty Drive. We hold debates that give you viable solutions. We bring to you people that Ivora is wanting to listen to. We are gender sensitive and give space to the unheard voices. Not forgetting the quote of the day.
We are live on our social media platforms, The Alternative Uganda on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter from Monday to Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Don't miss the debate behind the wheels and our studios.
I am Edgar Matthew Karuhanga.
Farida Vikobiri.
And Princess Luwe Delidian.
Expect in-depth analysis, credible, factual and authentic information. We are the Alternative Digitalk.
Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besuje.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digitalk,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here Saturday from 10 a.m. in the morning. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digitalk TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. My name again is Rogers Tulyahabwe, and today with two gentlemen, Joseph Gracious Tahinduka, who is a debate coach and a trainer in schools. He's also the head of the Cranes debate, which is like the national debate team. He coaches them. He's the head coach, along with a lot of other folks. And another gentleman, Geofrey Mugisha, who's also a librarian, and I would say, based on what he has told us so far, as an ardent reader. But I wanted to ask you one particular question. Do you believe in politics? Politics? Politics as is.
Well, we are political animals, everyone, every man ought to have political thought. Without political thought, where does your consciousness lie? So yes,
you are a believer.
I'm not a vocal person regarding politics and partisanism, but then I have political opinions, of course, because I would, there is governance. Politics is about governance, policy, implementation of these policies. So yes, I would, I subscribe to a certain political thought.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that particular one, but let me also ask Joseph, do you believe, would you believe in politics generally?
As a modulus operandi through which issues of the people are engaged, yes.
As I see most of you playing around the question, but okay, do you believe in one particular political party in Uganda? Or a political ideology of any of the political parties?
No.
Okay.
Not
now,
yet.
no, okay. Here is the thing.
They're not serious people yet. Yeah.
I think that is quite a personal opinion. But this is why I'm asking. That most of the times you will see that literally who and what we support is more about the representation of our interests and all that. And whether that is a representation of the majority now informs what the collective society does or does not do. So I wanted to also ask that, do you think it's important to have that culture of reading in that whole space of politics? Does it, should it be that much of a priority anyway?
Yeah, I wanted to introduce a caveat to a popular thought that politicians don't read. I think it could be like a hasty generalization. I think there are politicians who read, but what is the point of reading if what you read does not make actual impact? Because if what you read does not make actual impact, then you will ultimately go for tools of persuasion, which are simply emotional appeals to people largely. So we see our politicians, they do the kind of politics that the people from whom they want a social contract, the kind of politics that they want, which are not politics of look at this economic theory, look at this political theory, look at how we can move this. Who wants to listen to you about that? You work out that kind of magical politics. Someone will walk through with their bags of maize and will serve man on every barrel, and goodness, your economic theory, as good as it is, will evaporate in the air. So for me, I think by and large, people would want to be good leaders who read, who do like all these kind of things. But even if you have those kinds of thought and you're taking them to the Parliament of Uganda, you have the thought, but still your thought has to be moderated through the NRM caucus, which clearly is politics. Or you have your good thoughts, you're in NUP, but then the ultimate representation of a political ideology of the party does not accommodate that kind of elitist approaches, because even if they were to be used, they wouldn't be absorbed by the political process. So even if you take those who read at their best, their ideas cannot come to fruition, because the political infrastructure is around politicking, preservation of power, just caging power within. Yeah, so ideas don't yet have a way of penetrating society.
Okay.
Even
okay, and I wanted you to have an input on if reading should be part and parcel of politics. That if you are a legislator, at least you should be a reader. For the very least, you can do at least. Do you think that is important?
Well, with our society, it is appalling. It is the class and quality of our leaders. By the when you go by the global standard, by the global spectrum, for example, we have leaders who despise English as a language of communication, yet they have lived and have lived by English all their lives. So you despise something, you say it is second language, it doesn't make sense, it is not something worthy of communicating in, yet at the end of the day, this is a language that you don't have anyone to blame for. This is a language that this is a language of communication, it is a language of instruction. Right from primary, you've been speaking English, you've been instructed in English. So we ought to hold you to a certain standard when it comes to the comprehension, even the cognitive abilities. Remember, a language itself is helps in informing and informing your cognitive abilities. So the more languages one can speak or even read, that means that their cognitive abilities are broadened. For example, now imagine the limitation we have with Chinese, with what they are publishing, and you are blocked. We are totally blocked from that information. Yet we may need that information. So I believe that political parties, political organizations have, because they carry the mandate of the people, they carry the burden of responsibility, the burden of obligation that comes with leadership, to read and to research, to have entities, under them, under their management, for that class of intellectualism. They should go an extra mile into these different ideologies. But we have political parties in Uganda that don't subscribe. You don't even understand what their values are. They don't even the top leadership of those political parties don't understand the principles on which those parties are governed. Remember, these parties are as a result of the consciousness of different entities, different groupings, different individuals coming together to have a certain consciousness, to subscribe to identify themselves under a certain consciousness, a national consciousness. You say, for us, we identify under this. But then we are going to have sectarian parties in the future. They're going to and it is coming up. There's a breed of that coming up in Uganda. Why? Because we have a population that is not informed. And we have a leadership that can't be held accountable because the people that they govern, yes, don't say anything to account them for. So they can't hold them accountable because the population also doesn't know what to do with their leaders. And then the leaders don't know what to do with their leadership and with the population. So you end up with a country that is kind of stuck. It is plateaued when it comes to implementing certain policies, when it comes to doing certain things. Different government departments and the departments heads have no idea how to implement what, because they have limited knowledge. They need to broaden their knowledge of different affairs. They need to know the details. Imagine, as the world is operating right now, we have leaders that are confined to specific ideas that are pragmatic in a way that they are not transformational. You find that the opinions are that someone will go live on TV and they will utter statements that will wreck the entire country, and they will not be held accountable at all. Why? Because there is no structure to hold them accountable. We live under the politics not of organizations but of personalities, where the NRM is under Museveni, where NUP is under Chagulanyi. So you find that you want to dispense this person for another, yet you're replacing him or her with one that without a structure, yes, without a method, without a methodology of what are you going to implement when you have these powers, and with the little powers that you have so far, what are you doing? What are you trying to implement in society? So I believe that it is a prerequisite, though we can't implement it as the elitist class, because we don't have the we don't have the powers to do that. Otherwise, it is required of a leader to be a reader. Yes.
I think that is a right analysis. But what kind of literature do we identify? Because let me tell you, when we put it to the elites, I have a feeling that we are only restricting it to some type of information that has shaped that kind of perspective. But generally, now you talked earlier about now the languages that are going extinct, particularly because there's no literature about that. Now, but we are also saying, the same people are saying that literally the people who understand society as it stands, or those who are steering the direction of society, are the people who are elites. And then now, at least we have classified them as people who probably can speak English and that kind of business. Now, I want to look at how do we now preserve the identity of an individual, but also look at the elite kind of thing, because now to run a society, that someone is going to be able to go in parliament and do some reasonable legislation with the understanding of where they come from, what affects where they come from, but also resonate with what is the evolution of society as a whole.
I understand where you're coming from. Let me walk you through a chain of thought. So let's say the ministry is trying to bring forth a charter of fiscal responsibility, and they're trying to read it to the Parliament of Uganda. The Parliament of Uganda can scrutinize that document to the extent that they have a wide understanding of issues of economics. And the way the Parliament is structured is that when the charter comes in, it is received on the floor of Parliament, and then it is sent to a committee for discussion. Now, within the space of committee discussion is where we have to ensure that there is a lot of input from either public intellectuals or academia or think tanks to ensure that these documents, as public as they are, can receive input from a wide number of people that are widely read on that specific subject. But the problem that comes with that is that even when people want to make their contributions to that, the system is politically structured to simply dispel out opinions. You will be looked at as someone who is simply trying to sabotage government, and I then now go back to where I had come from, that I don't think that our leaders don't want to read, but if the fruits of reading are not coming through, what is the point of doing so? Because if you look at like the economic freedom fighters, got their website, or even their YouTube channel, their book discussions, got the National Unity Platform website. They have book discussions. Got the NRM, they have book discussions together. But there's a point where if your reading is not receiving fruits, there's that discouragement you have. But I'm not saying people should not necessarily read, but I'm saying that we need to have an actual democracy where ideas have the power that they have, such that if someone has ideas, then they can progress through as the leaders of the society, and through the interaction of those ideas, we can formulate which ideas are best for the country. So the way our democracy is structured, it suffocates ideas. And since ideas come from books, only those who love reading just for the sake of doing it, or maybe to join wonderful Bretton Woods institutions like IMF and academia and bluffing everywhere, they will read for the sake of that. But for actual development of the country, we need to create a political system which can receive the force of ideas. So that hasn't happened within our political system.
And now I'm going to, because I want to relate it to governance as a whole.
Sure.
And as an individual, I have a belief that the democracy, the institutions you build are based, like you said, on the opinions and perspectives of the collective population. That this is what the population believes, and so we should steer towards that direction. But so now, how do we shape the opinions that people are able to generate opinions on the common understanding, and not leaving it for some elites, some people to say that this is it that will work for us, and do the kind of one shoe fits all kind of approach, that you see someone will come with an opinion from one side of the country, and they will assume automatically that it will work on the other side, because you have not had the opinion or the input of the other side. So I want to understand, how do we build that whole ecosystem that is literally dying off of democracy and opinion, that to be able now to benefit a collective, all of us?
Well, I wouldn't want to say that. First of all, nations, especially developing nations like most of the African nations, evolve around the character of their leaders or their leadership. And you can see that however much I'm an advocate for democracy and stuff, I also look at certain societies like the Chinese community and look at the development the level of development and growth in China as has been by the leadership of its current ruler, Xi Jinping. You can see that the Communist Party, as an organ, has principles and values that drive them as a party.
Yes.
And you know, they take nationalism seriously and economic development very seriously. It is paramount. So they have a few objectives that they center on to focus. Even their population, even the young generations are centered around that. When you take us back to a couple of decades ago, you can, for example, the Nazis of Germany and the Hitler ideology, yes, the Führer. So you can see that it resonated around the ideas of Hitler as an individual, but then the German as a people identified with Hitler and his ideologies, in that every German person was kinda a duplication or a continuation of Hitler and his idea and his ideas. So you can see that every German identified himself as a mini Hitler, so to say. So you can see that he rallied the national consciousness around himself, but again, the Nazi as a system had administration, had organs, it had a system of operation that if the Second World War hadn't happened, just imagine the world without the Second World War, without Hitler being defeated. At least the entire world would have been Hitlerized by now. You get? So that is the power of rallying people under a certain consciousness. Now, in Uganda here, you don't expect the current regime to just lay grounds for you to sprout out, to just operate your ideas, to just function under their system. No. You have to know that this is a guerrilla regime that has that hasn't dropped its guerrilla tactics. And with that, you have to also know that you're operating under a system that is not going to give you room to sprout out and implement whatever you want. So what happens is you have to rally the people to demand a certain a certain accountability. Now, when you look at the youth nowadays, what is the perception? When a young person looks at themselves in the mirror, what do they see? What do they see? What does a black young man see in himself when he looks at himself in the mirror? What does a black young lady look at herself when she looks at herself in the mirror? You'll find that they are consuming perspectives from elsewhere, and you see that this is why it has led to for example, the skin bleaching agents. A high percentage of our young girls. Now imagine 10 years, 20 years from now, there will not be any melanin colored woman in Uganda here. Why? Because look at the cosmetics, look at the trends. What is fashionable? Being lighter skinned is the way to go. So you'll find light-skinned black girls lightening more. You'll find, dark-skinned, deeply dark-skinned melanin, deep with melanin, lightening themselves. So, and you wonder, what is leading to this? It is not because this is not even about readership. It is about leadership. It is about the structure of societies. When, for example, TikTok, where, China, where TikTok comes from, the algorithms are promoting different stuff. In China, when you are on TikTok, they are promoting and giving advantage to those that are standing out in technology, in different ideas, in creativity. So you find that this is the content that is consumable in their communities, and that is being promoted by the Chinese government. So you find that every young person will want to imitate or emulate that. However, check TikTok in Uganda and look at the algorithms and what they are promoting in Uganda. It has the most indecent utterances you'll ever find. It is I think the most immoral platform in Uganda currently. Sorry to say, why? Because of the standards. We need national digitalization, I think. You need to limit the boundaries of what information comes from outside. Though we need as much information, still information is required, but there is no direction to this information. a lot of information is on Google, but how are you accessing this information? There's no information dissemination centers, for example. even the UCC is just looking on as a lot of stuff is just happening. So what China does, what China did, it was block other sources of information to redefine the Chinese consciousness, to redefine Chinese information. How do the Chinese receive this information? What type of information do they consume? And that is the class of the Chinese people that we are seeing currently. However, in Africa is where we have anything from everywhere and everyone coming in. You know, it is a dumping site of everything from cosmetics to fashion.
Now, I want to understand, because it looks like now the problem has been that the literature we consume is kind of one that is not informed and one that is not directed.
Yes.
And you know, misdirection is also dangerous in a way. But now I want to understand, because now it looks like the biggest problem with the society that we live in is because people do not prioritize or do not focus, put much emphasis and investment in things that should breed the society that is coming after. And now I want to understand, as young people, I want us now to focus on young people, because as a collective we look at the generation that's ahead of us, apart from them 7 and a few of them, after them 7, the middle that are now the MPs and you know, those folks, some of them I wouldn't say those, you know, understanding kind of folks. How do we build now the young generation away from the TikTok generation, one that wakes up to twerk around and get some 4 million views and that is it, and you know, they wait for another day, that builds around the interests of the society that we live in? That, for example, if you're looking at a community as Uganda, political system, how do we change direction? That everything has literally been politicized. You just recently saw the Computer Misuse Act. Nowadays, it's very, very illegal to talk about some things, but there are things that are concerning us. Yeah. So how do we now build that young generation through the reading and that whole culture to nurture the system that will come next, and one that is useful?
Yes, one, we must recognize fundamental realities that technology is going to be competing with other mainstream interests like reading, which means that some realities have to be accepted, and we see how to live with them. Because technology comes with a lot of information which is disintegrated into very small information packages, like 30-second videos. Like YouTube is entirely changing its infrastructure to now counter TikTok by creating an infrastructure of YouTube Shorts, because people's attention span is extremely narrow. Meaning, if you're telling people to read a book of 2,000 pages, you're joking, aren't you? So for people who want to see society move forward, they are going to have to think a lot on how to approach this Gen Z and the millennials. I think it started with the millennials, and then the Gen Z, it's trouble. Them reading a page is a lot of hard work. They'll feel like, oh goodness, you're bringing a problem. So I think we need to invest in packaging reading, and then accentuating or giving it a specific reward which is very hard to miss. The things which we need to put a bit of dopamine effects on reading, because people consume out of social media. People want to wear nice things, smell nice. This is a new generation, right? They want to listen to the best music because of this feeling that they get. So I think we need to look at constructing reading with a dopamine reward. I don't know how that will happen, but the idea is that we have to do it, because the moment young people, even for the slightest sense, feel like you are indoctrinating them, yes, they will attend those systems of indoctrination, kindly get the financial reward probably, but as they move out of the room, they will have nothing to do. But if we can clearly define some dopamine rewards, some emotional rewards, some clear rewards that they get from reading, human beings of any age have a particular incentive within themselves to run towards a reward. And that kind of reward, whether it is book clubs in schools, and then those kinds of book clubs have specific rewards. But the idea is we need to create a reward system, because reading is dying. It is. He will tell you books nowadays, publishers are losing quite a lot of money, quite a lot of money, and because people don't want to read. People who are on YouTube who are releasing things which are really interesting. One video, 1 million likes. A book discussion to get 10 likes, my friend. It's huge trouble. I have belonged to a reading initiative called Readers Africa. We made attempts to starting book clubs in universities. My friend, we're in serious trouble. We're in really, really serious trouble. So we need to define rewards. And the moment then we have people who are simply natural readers, we are going to need to borrow perspectives from other continents on how they produce readers, and there's a lot of research to that. And then we see how to, for example, as a community of people who are interested in promoting this literacy foundation called Reading, we see how to strategically promote it. Because we could create the Rockefellers, the JP Morgans, the next Elon Musks, the next Rishi Sunaks, the next big things. But you don't want to produce an empty Elon Musk. You need to have, if you've had Elon Musk tweet, he tweets perfectly in economics, tweets perfectly on politics, tweets perfectly on social affairs. So we need those kinds of geniuses to build our continent, but they can't be produced by TikTok. They can't.
I'm going to ask you to also, how do you think we can shape this society? He says what we need is a kind of incentivizing it, but create some kind of attraction that someone, it becomes kind of interesting because it looks like an old school kind of thing nowadays. So how do you think we can also nurture that whole, culture?
I believe reading is changing, and we need to understand the trends. We need to understand the direction the world is taking. We once had the Stone Age era, to the agrarian era, to the industrial era, to now the information age. And this information age, now when you look at the billionaires, for example, the guys that are leading in tech are the ones that are leading the world, simply. Because online shops, online stuff, and so everything is going digital. So as we go digital, we need to study the perceptions of the people and try to figure out where and how we are going to implement certain things. So I believe that just as he mentioned, the reward system, the dopamine system, it has to go along with technology. It may not be necessarily reading the way we understand it, but it can be, for example, I remember when I was in high school, we got a geography teacher who came and, man, he was doing amazing stuff. But, he just brought videos of, the volcano, volcanic eruptions, and you're like, whoa, what is going on, So, and I can never forget such experiences. And for us, it was very easy to go into class and, just when it is an examination, for example, I knew what to do because I identified myself with the discussion that we had in class. However, when you look at schools, especially our rural schools, the teaching, the education itself is still lagging behind. With a few exceptions that are in our major traditional schools and the international schools that have the international curriculum, they're implementing creative stuff. So that when you look at the young ones that are coming up, man, it's a good breed of leaders and readers. However, so these are the same things, the same tools that the international schools are doing and the major traditional schools are implementing is what needs to be implemented elsewhere across the country or across the continent itself. It is very absurd that when Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation wanted to implement an education program in Africa under the bridge academies, they were attacked, and so it led to the death of schools that had, Bridge Academy had over 2,000 schools in Uganda, digitalized schools for poor people, paying 80,000 per term, 800,000. So you can just imagine, and they had seen far with technology. These guys see far, and they're like, okay, in the next 10 years, the people that Africa is going to be producing need to be doing this and that for us, just like what China is doing for them. Don't you think they know that Africa has a huge labor market? Why aren't they bring their factories to Africa? Because they also know that the labor quality is low. It's why you find even the Chinese companies coming here, but then they will just bring in the Chinese nationals to do these things. Because at the end of the day, let us be more realistic. Ugandans in these places will rob everything there is to steal, because these are values that we lack. When you look at our banks, for example, they have Kenyans in the top management of these institutions.
Yes,
we know this, it is public secret. Why? Because of their work ethics. So the work ethics is determined by so many factors back home in their country that they come and implement, they export this elsewhere, and it does them wonders. So I believe that we need to deal this around with technology. Look at and how do you interest the young people with this technology? How are you rewarding them? Just like I gave the example of TikTok. The way TikTok is rewarding in China is not the same way it is rewarding in Africa. In China, it is rewarding creatives. It is rewarding great minds, people that are doing outstanding things for the communities. In Africa, it is rewarding differently. It is rewarding people that are tracking, like you said. So until our governments come in and try to bring in policies that will regulate, however, also giving incubation spaces, incubation platforms for technology, give the young people these tools, give them access, so that they will be creative the good way. They will be creating content, and there will be another generation of content creators and influencers that which is so different from the class that we have right now. When you look at the content creators, for example, our Facebook in Uganda, or you go on Twitter, oh my God, it's a lot of hogwash. It is disappointing. This is we live in a generation of people that go from hashtag to hashtag, from social topic to another. There is no concentration span. There is no nothing. So our levels of attention. There is no attention to detail. We live in an era of communication with emojis and stickers. And K is like, instead of saying okay, like K. Just that. So you're communicating by just and imagine what the brain is speaking, because the brain communicates fast, and it is rewarded with emojis. There is a reward, an emotional reward, with like a smiley, with like a sad face. So comprehension and even the appreciation of grammar is going to die after a certain time. Why? Because the usage, how are we using language itself is going to be diminishing each and every day. So as much as we want to influence the world through writing and reading, we should realize that our people are not reading what we write. So we take the direction of technology and be able to influence them technologically. We create platforms and apps that direct that way. Because now, I'll give you an example. I have a friend who is so addicted to a social app that amplifies their grammar. So the moment you click in and you are able to tell what like similes or like certain words, they'll bring a word and they'll tell you which other word, for example, is related to this one. And you'll be like, okay, this is the word, this is the word. As you go picking these things out, they are rewarding you, and they reward in dollars. So I have a Ugandan friend in high school who is reaping rewards from the USA because they tapped into the system, the domestic system of the USA, and they are being rewarded in dollars to their account by just joining correct words in English. So this is what they are doing in the USA. a Ugandan genius or a Ugandan bright mind tapped into that, and they didn't, this young girl didn't do this, wasn't recruited into the system just because of, in being interested in grammar per se, but they were interested in the rewards. So they end up, their grammar has amplified, everything has changed around them, the world has transformed, her common diction is different.
But only because of the reward that
the reward in
an
dollars.
incentive
So
system.
dopamine is we should go into that direction, because the more you understand perspectives and perceptions of the people, you manage them, you are able to rule them.
That's quite true. Now, Joseph, I want to believe, for the most part, particularly as an individual, my interests, well, I had my own, but kind of the school also added a bit to that. I had a very interesting history teacher. I did HLD in high school, HSC. And I had two interesting people. One was my lecturer for literature. The other was for history, European history particularly, and then African nationalism. That gentleman made it very interesting. That history caught my attention, and I was like, wow, this is what actually these great people did, to become great or to make their nations thrive and all that. Do you think there is a way the education system has also lost a grip on this whole culture that now someone goes through school and you have your papers and that is it? There's literally no constructive work to do.
Yeah, working has 3 stages. There's mapping, there's making, and there's meshing. Most people do the mapping, which is the planning process and setting out objectives for what you want to teach. Then they go into do the teaching. The problem that at mapping stage, they are not widely read themselves. So they just want to pass the class, and that means as long as the class goes. So for a teacher who is not widely read, they can't produce a widely read person at its very least. They will not entertain questions, they simply want to run through class and get a paycheck at the end of the month. The second thing is, I wonder how my history teacher in high school missed to communicate the heart behind the African nationalism message. Because they are just teaching things, but those things are not having the power they're supposed to have. When you read the actual curriculum, the learning objectives tell you that a learner must understand African nationalism and how Africa found itself in this way. What the teachers used to do in the old curriculum per se, they teach something, but they don't communicate the heart. The teachers don't have their heart on the message. And in the long run, the message is just passed out and someone wants to simply get their grades at senior 4 or senior 6. So we need teachers who teach the heart of the message. If someone is teaching you, like my teacher of chemistry in high school, there's a way he would teach and you would badly want to go and read every other book on uranium or selenium, because there's a way he would describe it in such a way that he had a heart for the message. As a result, it would spark curiosity in the students to go and research more. So we need people who are communicating the heart, and I have been at university as well. You find someone is teaching something which probably has a transformative potential, but they're just teaching it. They're just running through it, right? They don't want to communicate the heart of the message. And if people get the heart of the message, then they want to read more. At university, I think around my first and second year, I used to want to read extremely widely. So you read extremely widely, you read what was studied, you also read what wasn't studied. But you find that lecturer is simply wanting an accurate record of what exactly was in their handout. So in the long run, and because I get a simple concept, I want to get like a lot of notes and understand it a little bit widely. You're teaching me how to build food machines. I studied food science. I don't just want to know the basics to know the machine. I want to know how it is made as well and how it can be explored. So you find that the system does not reward readers. It just rewards crammers. Therefore, you will not have readers. You have people who are very good before the exam of just connecting a pipe between the book and the part of the brain which memorizes. So the system needs to start to reward research, reading. It needs to do so. Look at schools like Aga Khan or most international schools or Seven Hills International Schools. Every week there is a drop everything and read day. And people read naturally, and even where I teach, there's people who come from the international curriculum and they come to the national curriculum. You find these are kids who read about 2 books per week. By the time I went
and not academic books.
Not academic books, whether it's around emotional intelligence or the Russian war. They have read almost every other kind of book. And I have noticed it within my class because I tend to want to teach and communicate the heart of the message. People read voluntarily without even me pursuing them. They just read voluntarily.
They are curious to explore the mystery.
So teachers must reward reading. They must teach in such a way that learning is centered around research, around personal reading, where the child or the student does like 80% of the work, and the teacher simply facilitates learning rather than them being the teacher. I usually use one example as I end. I'm sorry for taking a bit of a long time. Assuming the teacher is the jerry can, in case it's an empty one or a half-baked one, they will get the student and also pour in their small cup together, rather than the teacher showing the student that, look here, I got water from the well. This is the well, this is how you get water from the well. They end up simply getting the small jerry can. Some of them is like 5 liters, what they got in college or what they read towards the class to see. I don't want to look like I don't understand things before class. And then they also drop some few droplets. I want to pray for the one who will be taught by this one who has gotten droplets, because they might get steam. So we need to send students to the well. Yeah, to the well. I remember in high school, because of the heart of reading I had gotten, and by and large, before I got that heart, I used to be very, very bad in class. But when I got that heart, even after papers, voluntarily I would be in the library looking for more knowledge, looking through to just get more knowledge. So that curiosity, learning has to be centered around sparking curiosity for reading and rewarding those who read and research.
Okay, and now from what he says, I want to look at now as the education system as one. Do we restructure the curriculum as it is? Do we look at the recruitment requirements, for example, that if someone does not, if you're hiring a teacher, you should interview them and they should show their extensive understanding of the topic or subject of study that they want to apply in the school. Is it what do you think we can now make to breed the people who are coming through school but are intellectually understanding?
Well,
just beyond academics.
That is quite interesting. Like as he was discussing, I went back into the memory lane of my high school days, and what I can tell you is, in most of my high school days, I was more or less self-taught. I was self-driven, and this is what I've been, and this is what I am. I think for the rest of my life, because I remember there's that incident in school. A geography teacher comes and she's like, "Hey, well, today we are going to talk about the Gauge." I was like, "What is rain Gauge? What is that?" And so I'm like, rain Gauge. So she's like, rain Gauge, rain Wati.
I just understood that myself.
Yeah, and so as I seated there, I knew it in my heart that I was in the wrong class. So I excused myself, and whenever I would see her coming in, I would just march out. Why? Because I just knew that this is a person who doesn't know what they're talking about. They don't have the depth. Yes. So I remember even in Form 3 where they are discussing the different Archimedes principles in physics, and the teacher called Archimedes Archimedes. And I was like, where, you know, Akamadas. So, you know, and me with the little that I had read about Archimedes, so I come in class, you know, I'm widely read, I come from the library. Most of my time actually was spent in the libraries. So I come and sit under Akamadas, I know I'm in the wrong place. Yes. So just imagine that, and the other crop of students, you know, consumed Akamadas. And we are having teachers.
This is interesting.
Yes. And we have teachers now that, you know, because I have most of my hobbies are actually teachers. And I know they are teaching Akamadas, you know, because that is what they also received. Yes. So we are just saying that we need to inspire the young ones to go and read by themselves and for themselves. During my high school, in Form 4, I was the best history student in the country. Why? Because I related with these historical facts differently. I had some grooming under my grandfather when I was young, and he would spend time telling stories. So those storytelling moments, when I reached into I wouldn't even read. I remember when we were going to sit for my Form 4, I watched the Shaka Zulu movie, and when I reached into exams, it was one of the questions that I attempted in South African history, and I emerged the best in the country. You understand that? What I'm saying is, I just looked at the movie and I had my point. So when in different history classes, I would sit down and try to, and I would fall in love with the paper. I would understand that this is not just meant to threaten me. I wouldn't go into exams just for the mere sake of sitting for exams, the tension, you'd see people reading the last minute thing. I didn't do that. I would go into exams fully knowing that I am going to do this thing and execute it excellently. Why? Because of the confidence that I had accumulated over the years. This is a part of me. It is second nature. I don't expect, I knew that I'd do these things and convince, because this is like a dialogue I'm going to have with whoever. So I knew that wherever my paper would be, my history paper, it would be the marking guide.
As you conclude, we're running out of time.
So it is what I'm trying to say, that the schools and the academic institutions, the system needs to plant that into their students. They have to plant that ideology into their learners, that you are more than you look. You are beyond, you are bigger than the image that you see in the mirror. And when someone believes in themselves, you've inspired that seed inside them that will sprout greatness from them to other people. They'll impact nations just because of that process that one teacher did. So for me, it was just one person who has impacted me greatly to this day.
And you can all together give your parting shots, because you're literally running out of time.
Well, I thank you for hosting me. Thank you for having me. Really, it's a great opportunity to come here at the Alternative Digitalk to share these thoughts and opinions with the mighty men of our country.
Okay, thank you so much, Geoffrey. Tahinduka, I also want to get your parting shots, but also on how do we move to that informed young population that's just more than TikTok and twerking.
I'm going to end on a rather controversial note. I quote the words in the 2008 commencement speech at Harvard University by the author of Harry Potter. She said that you get to a particular age where you can't keep blaming your teachers and parents and government for not doing enough. So to you, the young person, whether you're 25, 24, 26, 16, 14, even 8, are you going to construct your life as a victim, or are you going to take responsibility over your life? You know your future. You know that future requires you to be a global citizen who is informed. That means that you have to take personal steps as an individual to know that reading is something that you need as a personal skill, as something that is as essential as feeding and eating. But this time, feeding your mind. I promise you that there are tangible, actual returns that come from reading that you will get as an individual to make you an astute member of the intellectual society. So that's my charge. there's an age beyond which you can't keep blaming your parents and teachers that they did not teach you how to read. You must take personal responsibility over your life and say, I must fill my head. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. He's a man who speaks very slowly but very surely. But gentlemen, thank you so much, Geofrey Mugisha and gracious Joseph Tahinduka, for making the time, and also particularly for what both of you are doing in this whole space of reading and making sure that we are bringing together a society of young people, or at least trying to breed the next community that is understandable and equally participatory in the growth and development of a collective community. My favorite books, the two of you, the Bible. I love the Bible. I am a Christian myself.
I love the frame of the argument. It's okay.
I love the Bible. I'm a Christian, staunch one, since I was born, so it's kind of a thing. but I have to, I wouldn't say very favorite, but there are some of the books I found I was interested in. One was The Alchemist, you must have read,
sure.
by a Brazilian author called Paulo Coelho. And it's about the desire, it resonates with what he was, his passing shot, that you must have the desire to do what you're doing. And you must listen to what is happening in the process. Even as you grow, sometimes you'll have those, red flags, and sometimes you will feel like this is trying to take out what I want to achieve. But maybe it is redirecting you to a better approach to that. So that is one of my friends. The other was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, sure.
By Dale Carnegie. No?
Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie, yeah. It's a book. 1936 is when it was written, so books don't age. That is the whatever. And I like it because it deals with emotions of people. It makes you understand that the people you're dealing with, creatures of emotions, not logic and intelligence. So until you understand how people perceive things and how they feel, you're bound to mess up and do this and that. But that is about me as an individual. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. I want to have a shout out for the lady who was on camera, Tenji Teddy Nabukera, and the gentleman who's producing Annual Dance on Mkose, and Lillian for coming here earlier to give us the updates on things that have been happening in and around us, so we can also get the informed decision of what is happening around us and how to live in that collective society. That is it from us. Alternative Digitalk is what it is. And I pray that you make it alternative every now and then. We come here to learn together, to make sure that we make a society a better one, that we are informed collectively, and that we move forward all together. It's not an island. You cannot grow alone. You must grow with the people that you are. So that is what we do. And that is from us. Have yourselves a very good morning.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.